So we're back, and of course, it wouldn't be getting back to business as usual if we didn't go and cover Conservative Home, because oh boy, Will Atkinson has been at it again. And as you know, he's our favourite T-boy over at Conservative Home. Given all the, shall we say, choice reporting to do, and in this case, he has been given the monumental task to show that Brexit's been worth it. That, you know, all this stuff that, Brexit promised, don't worry, guys, it's coming, it's on its way. He actually says that at the end of the article, don't worry, guys, the benefits of Brexit are on the way. Trust me. Anyway, what are we talking about? Well, last week, of course, there was a report released by the IEA, that's the Institute of Economic Affairs, and of course you will recognize the IEA from their wonderful backing, of course, by Liz Truss, who followed their ideas with glee and sheer abandonment and, well, crashed the UK economy and almost destroyed the UK pensions industry. And I say that every single time because it needs to be sunk in. How on earth can you trust a lobbying body that does not tell you where it gets its funding from, but led to such an economic disaster, ever really be trusted to give economic advice or trust that its economic predictions or data is correct? But this is what Will is going to set out and try and do. And of course, he's going to dismiss the fact that you had a number of very big economists, far more trusted economists, come out and say, yeah, that's all false. That's all wrong. Here's really what's going on. And we are looking at in a dip in trade by about minus 7.2%. Like I say, and if you look at the trade numbers, imports are up, exports are down astronomically. And not only that, but SMEs, your small, medium business enterprise who make up most of the business infrastructure in the UK, 80% of the business infrastructure in the UK is used by SMEs who have said all this Brexit stuff, all this red tape, all this extra paperwork that it is now costing them, that they didn't have to used to do before, has made them unable to even grow, to do trade, and they have lost business. We've covered this time and time again. We have seen businesses with 30 to 40% loss in business. Does Will mind about that? No, as we'll get on into a bit. Doesn't matter, because after all, they have to pay for it now, not the taxpayers. That's a massive hit to our economy, a massive hit to the economy, and yet Will, committed Brexiteer, proclaimer at one point of course, he used to be part of the youth wing of the Leave campaign. Yeah, remember, these were all the promises that you made, that Brexit would be amazing and wonderful. And this is why people like Will, I don't blame people who voted for Brexit, but people like Will, these commentators, the pro-Brexit MPs, politicians, the newspapers, they deserve the blame for Brexit and everything that happens. So when Will comes along and starts puts out a paper like this, calling the IEA his friends, then he needs to be reminded of the promises that he made and the fact that they aren't coming true. So before we, of course, we go into this, please do remember to click on the like, share, and subscribe button. And of course, as always, please do remember to click on the like, share, and subscribe button. Then, of course, as always, thank you very much to all those people who do help support the channel. Like I say, down below there is the Pony Club. There is, of course, the one-off donation link called Buy Me a Coffee. And, of course, as always, you can click the like and share button, and that helps out the channel as well. So let's go on to see what Will has to say about this IEA report. Between David Cameron's return from the political afterlife and Rishi Sunak's score draw on 2 of his 5 pledges, yeah, that wasn't really an impressive, shall we say, scoring 2 on his 5 pledges, and now he's going to publish 5 more, which he didn't really accomplish, to be honest. But there you go. And of course, the assault by Nadine Dorris on the estate of Ian Fleming. The news that, of course, that our friends at the Institute of Economic Affairs, or the IEA, have released a new report was somewhat overshadowed. And I think rightly so. Why on earth you would ever trust the IEA to publish accurate or make economic predictions ever after the disaster that proved to be Liz Truss? And remember, Liz Truss was following their economic advice. Yeah, should not be followed at all, to be honest. I would not be calling the IEA my friends, Will. That's, take that bit of advice from me now. So, the IEA has taken aim at, of course, pre-Brexit predictions from the Office of Budget Responsibility that the UK economy would shrink by as much as 4% as a consequence of leaving the warm embrace of Brussels. Instead, the report argues that Brexit has had no such impact. Yeah, sorry, the number of times we have covered businesses, industries, other economists who've said, look, this is the reality of what's going on, and not just UK economists, other economists that have looked at our economy and said, yeah, the British economy is in an absolute bad state because of Brexit. Yeah, there's a lot of evidence to say that Brexit just has not worked when it has come to the state of the UK economy, that it has hurt it far, far more than it has aided it. In fact, it has been no aid to the British economy whatsoever. But of course, remember, Will's a Brexiteer, so of course he's got to keep on, holding that Brexit flag high when it is very obvious, even now, even the Conservatives, they're not talking about Brexit because even they know talking about Brexit now is completely pointless. Why? Because Brexit was sold as the balm to all the UK's problems. We leave the EU and the land of milk and honey, those Brexit brighter futures will all be there for us. That has not happened. But Brexiteers like Will, Daniel Hannan, all coming out of the woodwork saying, don't worry, guys, the bright Brexit future is just over the horizon. Trust us, it's just over the horizon. Trust me, it will always be just over the horizon. Or, oh, if only politicians would follow our advice of the free market fundamentalist variety, then, it would be plain sailing all the way for the UK. That's what they're going to do now. This is the new cottage industry. You can't write about how bad Brussels is anymore. So tell you what, just write about how wrong, that politicians are doing economically, and only if we went in this free market fundamentalist direction, everything would be fine and grand. Anyway, back to it. So instead, the report argues that there's been no such impact. Such fear-mongering has created, quote, a false narrative, according to Catherine McBride, the report's author, that Brexit has the potential to enhance, not hinder, future UK trade. Enhance how? Because I've read that report, and it is very much magical thinking in some cases. And I agree with a lot of other people who have criticized her for her magical economic thinking that, oh, don't worry, because the future of UK trade is going to be amazing because, of course, remember, we're going to be trading with all these other new countries, these developing economies. Because their line goes like that, while the EU line goes like that. Why? Because they are a developing economy. They are growing their economy. They are developing their economy. So, of course, they are having exponentially fast growth. Eventually, though, that growth will peter off. Just like, the UK and the EU are classed as advanced economies, we tend not to have real big double-digit growth. That is because we have developed our economies, and it is incredibly difficult to get these like 10-15% jumps that you see in a lot of these other developing economies. And yet they're obsessed with this idea that the Brexiteers and these free market fundamentalists, that if we trade with these people, then somehow our economy will be grow and be fantastic as well. Doesn't work like that, unfortunately. But that's the kind of thing that she was promoting in that report. Anyway, Will continues. Kimi Badnock mentioned it approvingly at the government's International Trade Week, saying that we should stop talking ourselves down. The business secretary told the assembled investors that we should instead talk ourselves up. Firm patriotic stuff to warm the hearts of any conservative home reader. Looking conversely, of course, towards the foreign secretary, global Britain's sunlit uplands beckon. Once again, Brexiteers sold the idea that Brexit was going to solve all our problems. There was going to be no problems. It was all going to be fine. Britain was a big enough economy to take on all comers, and that economic shocks and things like that. No problem. We'll be fine. We'll be able to handle it far more agilely and better than being in the EU. And yet we've had COVID. We haven't handled that well economically. You've got the impact of the Ukraine-Russia war. That hasn't been handled too well either. And while these are, of course, having effects on the European economy as well, they are handling it far, far better than we are. But remember, we were told by Brexiteers, don't worry, we can become this super agile, amazing trade nation. But a few of the usual suspects found the report about as enjoyable as Badnock did, reviewing Michael Gove's Tinder matches. David Hegney of the suitably grandiose European Centre for International Political Economy called it a, quote, humiliation for Badnock to associate herself with the report. Yeah, it is a humiliation because remember, it comes from the IEA, the institute responsible for Liz Truss almost crashing the economy and destroying the UK pension industry. And why do I always talk about the pensions industry? Well, because the UK economy is heavily dependent on the UK pensions industry. The UK pensions industry is a big investor in a lot of areas. If that had gone, if you had had pension companies going bankrupt, the catastrophic effects that would have caused would have made Liz Truss's mini budget seem like a walk in the park. And I want to keep on reminding that to people, and you should remind it to anyone else who quotes the IEA, because you cannot take them seriously as a body that gives sound economic advice. Anyway, he continues. Pete Foster of the Financial Times claimed that she was, quote, dismissing the serious research that economists dismissing serious research, and economist John Portes accused the IIA of taking us as hacks for fools. And again, perish the thought, Will adds. Yeah, there has been overwhelmingly negative impact from a lot of people on the economic side of this, overwhelmingly so because of this. This has not been received well by other, shall we say, notable economists. No economist has come out and said, wow, that report from the IEA is truly fantastic. That should tell you everything you need to know. So we're going to skip some of this because obviously he talks about the infighting between the economists, but as I say, that's what we're not here for. We're here for other things as well. So here it is. So after all he talks about this stuff and even acknowledges, and I'll give this to Will now. He actually does acknowledge and bring up the facts that other people have reported. Yeah, your numbers are terrible. So we'll at least give that. But of course, that doesn't matter to Will. That doesn't matter at all. And you're about to see why now. So this raises an obvious point. Brexit is hardly the only major economic shock to have hit our trade in the last 2 years. Trade openness has plummeted in 2020 and 2021 due to the COVID lockdowns, despite exports of goods from the EU increasing by 33% in the first half of the last year. Our trade deficit has reached record levels high due to surging energy costs following Russia's invasion of Ukraine. And it's not just based on energy costs. It is a number of areas and industries and stuff that has happened. Once again, when you look at it, when you look at the UK economy as a whole, Brexit does not paint a good picture. As always, we criticise the Brexiteers since 2016. Hey, you focus on like one industry. Why not the UK economy as a whole? Or you say this industry and this industry will do fantastic from Brexit, but you don't look at the UK manufacturing industry, who your own Brexit economist came out, and Patrick Minford said that Brexit would destroy the UK manufacturing industry. I notice Will doesn't talk about Patrick Minford, who came out to defend this report. I wonder why. Anyway, the argument rumbles on. Leavers and Remainers accuse each other of including status or not others, measuring some figures in one way and others in another, or being too panosic or just too glum. Commenters can obviously sit back and just pick the statistics they like, earning their keep, telling their blinkered audiences that Brexit is either going swimmingly or terrible, depending on their finances. Pay your money, you make your choice, like you've just done well. You know? Although I will give you the fact that you did include a lot of the rebuttal against that report. So, credit where credit is due, but you are about to take this off on a bigger scandal, because I would say the real story here is the fact you have had a pro-Brexit think tank put out a report saying everything is going swimmingly, while in reality, every single other major economist in the UK has turned around and rubbished it. That should really be the story. But no, Will is about to turn that story and all those numbers that you just read, saying, "Oh, but don't worry, people didn't vote Brexit just for trade." And like I say, we've always said, Brexit was just an amorphous blob. One moment it was about trade, next moment it was about sovereignty, next moment it was about something else, because they knew when they would lose on one argument, well, let's turn it to the sovereignty. Oh, we're losing on that. Let's turn it to, something else. It was just a complete amorphous blob. Always has been, always will. And they are still doing it now. You've just had all this economic information, which does not make which does prove that the IEA's report is bad, and the UK economy is actually in a quite bad state, which is something we should be concerned about. But instead, no, that's not the real reason why people voted for Brexit. The idea that we could be this trade and buccaneering part of the world, that was a big part of the Brexit campaign. Well, you were a part of it. You should know, you should accept the responsibility of that, and that it has harmed our economy. And that is bad because it leads to so many other problems that we need to fix. There you go. So this approach does neither side of the once and future Brexit argument much good. Waving a bloody shirt from the 2016 produces a lot of heat and very little light. Neither side of the debate converts anyone to their side of this cause by reducing our relationship with the EU to no trade alone. Nor does it produce a useful or complete picture of Britain's overall economic position. Congratulations, Will. That's just what I've said. But every single time we do this, or we want to have those debates, it gets ignored. And I have to wonder if Will wants to talk about his reports from, his friends at the IEA on Brexit. Why has he never done any, shall we say, pro-Remain think tanks? Why has he never gone over their reports? So he clearly has his own bias that he in this. He has his own, flesh in the game, shall we say? So, according to Lord Ashcroft's referendum poll, only 6% of those voters who backed leave in 2016 did so because the UK would benefit more from being outside the EU than being a part of it. It may long have been part of the Eurosceptic global Britain, look at Switzerland, guys, surely we could be like them too playbook, but it was not central to Leave's appeal or victory. It was ultimately part central to it. Like it or not, that was part of it. You can't just say, "Oh, but trade wasn't a part of the Brexit campaign, guys." Yeah, trade's not doing that well, but it wasn't part of the Brexit campaign. Again, Brexiteers always, since 2016, always distancing themselves from the different arguments that they made in that campaign every single time. So continues. Sovereignty, immigration, history, our position in the world, economic trade-offs, bendy bananas. These are all the issues which that distant referendum turned. And of course, the government has disappointed. Been disappointed. You had one job, guys. Will says, but in other areas, the decision to leave has been vindicated. Okay, where's been this vindication? What has this been? We have proved wrong those who said that an independent Britain would be too small or too irrelevant to cut its own trade deals. CPTP, anyone? Okay, let's go over this. Here's the thing. If no one was going to turn Britain down for a trade deal, no one was saying that. We never said you were never going to be able to do your own trade deals. What we said was that we would not be able to do as good as trade deals as we were when we were in the EU, with that big, economic backing of all the EU 27 nations combined together. You look at the what is it, the Australian trade deal that fell through because Australia tried to say to the EU, we want you to accept these trade deals. So it fell out and it fell into a complete farce. And we did that video a couple of weeks ago by that. And the EU just went, okay, doesn't matter if we don't get a trade deal with you now. But our trade deal, awful, awful. We gave them everything and we got nothing in return. And you talk about the CPTP or the Pacific Partnership. There's so many downsides that in the EU are even worse. The secret courts, the fact that we have to accept lower quality goods even if our standards are higher. Do you think that's a good idea, Will? Because that seems to be a big thing on sovereignty. Not only that, our position in the world, we're not even in the Pacific. But Brexiteers, of course, obsessed with this idea. Oh, you don't understand. It's the fastest growing area in the world. Again, developing economies. Sooner or later, this line will start to plateau as they develop their economies. That's how it works. So are we going to be leaving the Pacific Partnership to go to whatever the next big, prosperous area is next? And these independent trade deals that we've done, none of them have been good. The idea that we're going to get a trade deal from India any day soon now, that seems to have gone very quiet indeed. And if we do get a trade deal, I doubt it's going to be very good. Or it'll be like what Australia got from India, which was like not a free trade agreement, but a sort of a promise of future deals. And of course, 10 years on, they still have not got a free trade agreement with India. We are just a lot smaller and incredibly irrelevant to a lot of these countries that we are going to try and get trade deals. That's the truth. Even the Pacific Partnership, the only reason we are in there is Japan is in there to say no to China. That is the only reason why we are there. We do not gain any economic benefit from being part of the Pacific Partnership. There has been, again, countless economists saying, why are we being there? Why are you doing this? There was the one we covered from the Japan Times, 2 or 3 years ago now, when all this started with a Japanese economist saying, "Yeah, I don't understand why you want to be part of the Pacific Partnership because it doesn't benefit your economy. Um, you'd be much better off being in the EU single market." And that was a Japanese economist questioning us. And of course, here he goes. Remember, these are the old hits. Benefited from the vaccine rollout. Nope. We were still in the EU when we had the vaccine rollout. We still had to follow EU rules, laws, and regulations. Again, we did not benefit from a vaccine rollout. Something that would have not have happened without a Leaver government. Again, no, we do not benefit from any vaccine rollout. We were still in the EU at the time. In many of these areas, we had to follow the rules, we had to follow the regulations. And if you want to say vaccine rollout, why then did other countries who later then took up the vaccine not only outpace us in terms of giving out the vaccine as well? You know? Anyway, and then I love this part. I love this admission. As I've said previously, Will says, Brexit is neither the source nor solution to Britain's economic ills. So why did we do it then, Will? Why then were Brexiteers so loud, constantly shouting from the rooftops, saying, we must Brexit, because if we don't, we'll be chained to the sinking European economy. But of course, Europe is, again, to any Eurosceptic, Europe is about always 2 minutes to midnight of its economic imminent destruction. Again, never happened. Never even happened now. There was no massive domino effect of us leaving. If anything, uh, EU sentiment and pro-EU sentiment has only grown since we left. So, um, so you say that our quote chronic inability to build on a large scale or budget, a stoic and growing state, a dependency on mass immigration. Again, Will just realize that we've changed like from Europe immigration to non-EU immigration, right? That mass migration is still happening. Um, the usual expensive energy, a culture of short-termism, monetary incompetence, and of course an opaque tax system. Ultimately, these matter more than just how quickly or not UK importers and exporters have recovered since from 2019. Every single point Will has mentioned there. What do we say? Who has been in power for the past 13, 14 years? It has been your party, Will. It has been your party explicitly. They have not tackled a single point you have raised there. Not one. And I agree with you. Brexit does not solve any of those issues. But you are championing a government who promoted Brexit. You yourself promoted Brexit. Um, you know, your fellow Brexiteers said, Brexit would be wonderful, that we'd have all these sunlit uplands. The second we leave, it's gravy all the way. But again, of course, the Brexit benefits just coming, always, always just over the hill. And only if we Brexited rightly, only if we did more of these crazy free market fundamentalist things, which openly they don't really like to talk about. And I'll give you an example. Will says here, a growing state. Every single time a conservative brings this up to you, your immediate response should be, if you hate a growing state, or you hate how large our state is currently, what should the government not be doing that it does now? And you will receive the biggest non-answer in the world. And by the way, obviously, Argentina is it Argentina? Yes, Argentina just elected a pretty much a libertarian supervillain, uh, who on the campaign trail called himself ANCAP man because he's an anarcho-capitalist. He said he's going to just get rid of some fundamental agencies. So you're about to see probably, and to be honest, I'm certainly going to cover these because these are always worth covering, just how bad this free market libertarian stance that a lot of you conservatives are always on, but never really advocate fully, just how bad things are going to get in Argentina. Because, oh boy, yeah, things are going to get interesting in Argentina. Very, very interesting indeed. So we'll be keeping our eye on what goes of there. I wonder if will ever write a piece on Argentina and their, their libertarian supervillain of a president now. Yeah, something tells me I don't think he will. But there you go. So, as always, thank you very much, of course, for watching. As always, please do remember to click on the like, share, and subscribe button on your way out. And of course, down below there is a link to my Patreon page and a one-off link called Buy Me Coffee, where you can buy me coffee. And of course, as always, we'll see you all next time.